No one here.
Yes, we can. I'd like to bring this meeting to order. Notices of this meeting were forwarded to the Inquirer, Courier Post, Clerk of the Township, the district website, and members of the Board of Education, and posted in the Board of Education offices at 17 Ariel Road, Blenheim, New Jersey. Please note that this board meeting may be audio videotaped. Can we stand for the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can we get a roll call, please?
Mrs. Fritz,
Here.
Mrs. Galnick,
Here.
Mr. Gibbons,
Here.
Ms. Gore,
Here.
Mrs. Henry,
Here.
Mr. Hutchinson,
Here.
Mrs. Johnson, Ms. Stantino.
Here.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Here. Can I get a motion to go into executive session? I'm gonna give that one to Mrs. Johnson first. Second, Mrs. Gore. There are two employment items. Correct, Mr. Bilodeau? Okay. Any questions?
No.
Okay. Can we get a roll call?
Mrs. Fritz,
Here.
I'll take that as a yes. Mrs. Galnick,
Yes.
Mr. Gibbons,
Yes.
Ms. Gore,
Yes.
Mrs. Henry,
Yes.
Mr. Hutchinson.
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson,
Yes.
Ms. Stantino.
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Yes, and we'll be back out at 7. Bring this meeting back to order. Can I get a roll call, please?
Mrs. Fritz,
Here.
Mrs. Galnick,
Here.
Mr. Gibbons,
Here.
Ms. Gore,
Here.
Mrs. Henry,
Here.
Mr. Hutchinson,
Here.
Mrs. Johnson,
Here.
Ms. Stantino.
Here.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Here. Mr. Bilodeau, for our students?
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. O'Donnell, members of the Board of Education. Welcome to Glen Landing Middle School. I'd like to turn tonight's program over to our Assistant Superintendent of Schools, Mr. Tim Cho. Mr. Cho?
Wow, applause. I think that's the first time I ever got applause at a board meeting.
Welcome.
I appreciate that. Good evening, everyone. Welcome out. Thanks for coming out on St. Patrick's Day. I know some people would rather be elsewhere maybe, but who would not want to be at a school honoring some students? So thanks for coming out. This is an exciting time each month at the board meeting where we get the opportunity to recognize some deserving students and some of the staff members for the great things that they do. And so just for those of you that this might be your first time, what we do is we call up the administrative teams from each of the 2 schools that will be recognizing students. They'll talk a little bit about what's going on, bring the students up. And then we also have certificates here from Mr. Bilodeau, our superintendent, and the Board of Education that will be given to the students after the presentation. Then we also do break and get some photos that we can put on the district website and to put out as well. So we'll ask you to stick around for that. So I will finish up then and turn it over to the people who really matter that you actually came out to see. We're going to start with our friends up the hill. All right, they decided they were closest. They get to go first from Loring Fleming Elementary School. Dr. Rose and Mr. Moorfeld, there you go.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Tro. Good evening. We'd like to thank the Board of Education and Mr. Bilodeau for this opportunity to recognize our students at Loring Fleming. It is my pleasure to recognize a remarkable group of students from Loring Fleming who have gone above and beyond to promote kindness and build a positive school climate. Can I please have the Loring Fleming students who participated in the Kindness Club and Kindness Week join us up front? Let's give them a round of applause. What a great group I have here. Guys good? Okay, while I'm sharing a few words about the great work the students have done, please direct your attention to the smartboard to see the students in action. As active participants in our Kindness Club and Kindness Week, these students have demonstrated a true commitment to spreading kindness, not only within our school, but throughout the entire community. Their efforts have made a meaningful impact, from creating warm fuzzies with gratitude for teachers, to reading to younger students, greeting their peers with kindness posters during morning arrival, and even organizing dress-up theme days to promote positivity. Through these actions, they have embodied the values of kindness, empathy, and encouragement, showing us all the power of small acts to create a big difference. Tonight, we celebrate these students for their leadership and dedication to making Loring Fleming a better place for everyone. They remind us that kindness is contagious, and their efforts inspire us to do our part in creating a more compassionate world. Congratulations to these students. We are incredibly proud of you. And also a special thanks to our counselors, Mrs. Schlanger and Mrs. Haverluck, who couldn't join us tonight, and our counseling intern, Mrs. Bishop, who's in the back. If you could just give a little wave. And also, let's give a nice big round of applause for our students for their work during Kindness Week in the Kindness Club. We have certificates, and we'll hand them out once we go over to the cookies.
Great job, guys. So I don't want to start any trouble, but the two ladies I'm going to bring up next suggested that Loring Fleming go first because they said we'd want to save the best for last. So I don't know. I'm just saying. So we've got our team from Choose Elementary School coming up, Miss Kidd and Miss Lewis.
All right, so while Mrs. Lewis is plugging in the slideshow, I would like to call up Mrs. Summer Backey and her kiddos who are here tonight. Come on, Dan, come on up. Rose, Lily, Johnny, who else is here? Yasan, Ava, yay, come on over. All right, so these are just a few of Mrs. Backey's kiddos, and they have been working this school year. Whenever we have an early dismissal, they have the Mighty Delicious Cafe, and they have served some of our board members. They have served some other special guests who have come to the building specifically to visit the cafe, and as well as some others. So they serve coffee, tea, right? What else? What are some of the other things that you've been serving? Hot cocoa, right? That was a suggestion. So we're learning how to like do good customer service, how to take orders, how to add up how much everybody's stuff costs, how to make change and give change, right? And how to prepare everybody's order for them, right? All right. And they're working towards, what are you guys working towards? What are you saving that money for? Two.
Oh, they don't know.
Oh, it's a surprise. Oh,
I guess no.
guess where you're going? Oh. All right. So as you can see here, I'll click that and you can.
So everyone is invited to our Mighty Delicious Cafe, presented by Mrs. Backey's class. So the students are gaining experience with social skills and math skills. This is their order form. Each order, when the staff members come up, each student has a clipboard and they will take our order and then check us out. So these are some students waiting to complete their sales. And these are examples of the individualized service. So when the students are waiting their turn for their shift to begin, they're also doing work inside our conference room. They're ready to take our orders. Clipboards are ready. And we have another satisfied customer. These are some of our board members who visited, Mr. Gibbons, Ms. Johnson, and Ms. O'Donnell. So thank you so much for coming. And we also had officers who were in the process of doing lead training come and visit our cafe on Friday. And they had a wonderful time. Thank you all so much.
Mrs. Kidd, before you leave, could you stay there a second? I just wanted to commend both you and Mrs. Lewis for doing such a admirable job running and leading Choose School this year. So thank you for stepping in. There was a lot of discussion on who would step in and fill the shoes, and we know that Mr. Williams is returning hopefully soon, but he couldn't have give the building to someone, two people better to run it. So very good job.
Again, just a great opportunity to see some of the many different things that are happening in the building that are special across our district. And we just appreciate the students, the families, and our staff for all the excellent work that they put in. Do you have any other announcements? I keep dismissing people and then, oh, wait, there's one. We're good. All right.
Buy a
But-
green tie for next year. Mr.
I
Chairman.
know.
Yes,
I
thank
got
you.
dressed in the dark this morning. Monday morning's rough. At this time, we're going to break for, take a short recess. Again, we'd ask if you don't mind to have your students meet on the other end of the library here. Ms. Boney's going to take photos. And then there are some refreshments for you there. We'll take a short 5 to 10 minute recess, take the photos. If you'd like to stay for the rest of the business portion of the meeting, you're more than welcome to stay. Otherwise, you can take off and get the kids to bed, whatever it is that you need to do. And the business portion will resume in about 10 minutes. All right. Thank you. Have a great night.
You didn't hear me. Can I get approval of the minutes? I need a motion. What? We're gonna bring the meeting back to order.
There you go.
Can I? Sorry, I am fine voice.
Get her coach.
Can I get a motion to approve the minutes for executive session, February 24th?
So moved.
Mrs. Johnson, thank you.
Second.
Mr. Gibbons for the second. We get a roll call, please.
Mrs. Fritz,
Abstain.
Mrs. Galnick,
Yes.
Mr. Gibbons,
Yes.
Ms. Gore,
Yes.
Mrs. Hendry,
Yes.
Mr. Hutchinson,
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson,
Yes.
Ms. Santino,
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry, abstain.
Mrs. O'Donnell.
Yes. Can I get a motion for the regular meeting, board minutes, February 24th?
So moved.
Uh-oh, I'm giving that one to Mrs. Gore.
Second.
You can have that, Mrs. Johnson. Can I get a roll call, please?
Mrs. Fritz,
Abstain.
Mrs. Galnick,
Yes.
Mr. Gibbons,
Yes.
Ms. Gore,
Yes.
Mrs. Hendry,
Yes.
Mr. Hutchinson,
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson,
Yes.
Ms. Santino,
Abstain.
Ms. O'Donnell.
Yes. Mr. Bilodeau, do you have any changes to the agenda?
No, I do not.
I have a change to the agenda.
Oh,
So
okay.
So 6.0 committee reports, Personnel Committee met and was not on there. So I would like to add the Personnel Committee,
As E, as in Edward.
please, to the board committee reports.
Okay, thank you. My apologies.
Thank you.
We have a date?
I'll do it when I do the, report. Yeah,
Okay.
thank you. Any public comments regarding agenda items? None? Yes, hi. If you could stand to the microphone, just your name where you're from?
Town, just
Yeah, just town. It's good. Hi.
Hi, my name is Vanessa, and I'm just asking about the HIB investigations.
Okay.
Uh,
You have
the-
something specific?
Yeah, my daughter had a HIB 338 form that was founded and was supposed to be submitted to the board, so I just wanted to find out what that ruling was.
That's not something we typically discuss publicly because it's a student issue. And I could have Mr. Bilodeau reach out to you and let you know if it's on this agenda.
Okay.
I can speak to it.
Go ahead. Yeah. if
So
you
what
want.
happens is once it's reported to the board, which happens tonight, then the letters go out with the outcome following this meeting to both the accused and the target.
Okay,
Of the HIB.
this is already my third investigation,
Gotcha.
and this is supposed to be the meeting that is replied, and you guys are supposed to give your ruling on it. At
Did
this
you
point.
appeal it?
No,
Okay.
I'm just making sure that nobody else is at this point.
We have
considering
no
yours-
appeals pending for tonight.
Okay,
All right.
all right.
Thank you. Anyone else for agenda items? Nope. Report of the solicitor, Mr. Long?
I was not in executive session this evening, but due to the decision of one person up here, but I have nothing at this time. Thank you, Mrs. O'Donnell.
Thank you. Committee reports. Policy committee. Can we do the report, Mr. Gibbons?
Sure. I guess I'm the first one to report.
You
on
are the
policy
first committee report.
committee
Congratulations.
Or on any report. Make it good. All right. So the policy committee met on February 12th. Myself, Ms. O'Donnell, Ms. Johnson, Ms. Hendry, and Mr. Bildo were in attendance. Most of what we discussed had to do with Strauss Esme, which is a company that sends regulation changes that have to do with abiding by state rules and things like that. So that was the majority of this. There was student residency eligibility issues talked about and how to handle those. Cell phone usage was a topic that was talked about at length and gone over to with some administrators, teachers, principals. Food service, we talked about. Committee reports and this whole thing to the whole transparency and accountability to you guys of what actually goes on was discussed not on the 12th, but in general. So this whole thing, I think, is it's a very good thing. It's where all the work of the board is actually done. What else here? It also allows if somebody had a question of something that's on the agenda, maybe the policy committee member can address, that question at that time, I think. Let's see here. Oh, another thing that's new on here is board member attendance. I think that's a good thing. When we're talking about student chronic absenteeism, I think it's our responsibility to be here for this position as well. So that being out in the open, I think is a good thing. But I think other than that was pretty much the majority of the most recent policy committee updates I can give. So.
It's a lot of work. Thank you. AI committee?
Good evening. We had our first meeting on February 13th. The board members in attendance were myself, Mrs. Hendry, Mr. Hutchinson, and Ms. Fritz. The administration in attendance was Mr. Bilodeau and Mr. Tro. We basically talked about the goal. We reviewed it so that we all understood it and known the action that we were going to take. The committee discussed the meaning of the goal. And we want to show progress in this area for AI. So we are doing extensive research. And that was the homework that was given. We talked about what the policy should include, the scope of the AI policy. And we I gave everyone homework to read some policies that we had as examples and some articles for everyone to read to get more familiar with it. And we had our next meeting on March 13th, which I'll give a summary next time we meet.
Thank you. Finance committee?
So Finance Committee met February 19th. I'll keep it simple. We really just went over the budget, which was in the agenda for tonight. And we also just talked about the state aid that's coming in, so that kind of contributes to the budget and determine what our needs are for the upcoming year. So that's pretty much it.
Thank you. Curriculum,
So the curriculum.
microphone, sorry.
Sorry.
Nope, you're good.
So the curriculum committee met on February 24th, and in attendance was myself, Mr. Hutchinson, Mr. Below, Mr. Tro, and Mr. Mason. We discussed the district's new science curriculum and their recent selection of Amplify materials that will be used in all the science classes in grades 6 through 8. Many of the teachers have volunteered to be trained and began using those materials for the remainder of the year. The committee also reviewed data about progress towards district goals in attendance and student achievement. And we learned that absences year to date are higher than last year. And we believe the flu and other illnesses are higher than last year, and hope that the numbers will get better as the spring approaches. And then we wrapped up the meeting, talking about the math goals and reading goals. And we meet every time that we have a board meeting before the board meeting. So we met today, and we'll have a report next time we meet on that.
Thank you. And the last is personnel, and I am the chair of that. We met on March 3rd, Mrs. Johnson.
Thank you.
In attendance were Mr. Bilodeau, Mrs. Dentino, Mr. Gibbons, Miss Hendry, and myself. We discussed student registration, the summer work week, the 2025-2026 school budget staff requests, and other personnel matters. Personnel, of course, we can't get too detailed on as it is, you know, a private issue. So that one will always be a little vague. That was great. Thank you so much, everyone. Mr. Bilodeau, report the superintendent.
Thank you, Mrs. O'Donnell. I'd like to ask the board for consent resolutions. They would be beginning with item 7.2A through 7.6K.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Mrs. Johnson, thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Mrs. Gore, thank you. Any questions?
I have one question.
Okay,
Just
microphone.
in general question for intermittent, FLA, that's different than FMLA. Don't they have to be recertified every year like FMLA does? Because there's one on here for 2 years intermittent, and I thought they have to be recertified for every year.
Mr. Mercado, you want to assist on that question?
There's two types of leave. There's FMLA. which
Can-
is
Can we just get him a microphone, please? I appreciate that. Thank you.
I was just curious if
It doesn't come up on the recording.
Good
It's
evening.
terrible. Thank you.
There are two types of leave. FMLA, which is federal leave, and New Jersey Family Leave Act. So the requirements for FMLA on a federal leave is 1,250 hours that you have to be work in the previous year and be with your employer for a year. That gives you 12 weeks of leave intermittently or at a block time. Now, it's very specific who you can take your leave for. It's your immediate family. Could be your child, or your spouse, a mother and father. There are other scenarios where the New Jersey FLA is grander in general scope. I can consider Gene, who I'm not related to, as family, and I could take leave for him. It's grander in scope with New Jersey FLA. So that gives you 12 weeks over a 24-month period of time. And you only have to work 1,000 hours prior to taking that leave. In this particular scenario, that individual who they're caring for does not fall within the scope of FMLA.
Okay.
So yes, you
I
can,
just didn't realize it was 2 years. I had
Yeah.
asked him. I was
you
gonna
can
email
apply
him.
for it every year, but you also have to meet the threshold of 1,250 hours
Oh.
that you had in the previous 12 months. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I have one question.
Mrs. Hendrick?
We have 7.6C as in cat. We have some people who have decided to resign. I believe have we been doing exit interviews? Do we know why they decided to no longer be a part of our district?
We have instituted for all departing staff the opportunity to fill out an exit interview. I don't know if these particular staff have. They probably waiting for board action before, they would be subject, although there's February in here. So I don't know if they elect to do that, Mrs. Henry,
Okay.
but they are offered that.
How is that offered? Are they given something on the way out the door, an email?
I believe it's an electronic link to answer. Hold on. Hold on.
Again, the day after the board meeting, all the individuals that have either resigned or retired or were terminated or sent an email is a Google Doc, and they have the option to complete the questions. We asked them to help us in our approach to hiring people. What could have we done better? Why did they leave? And those things. They're not obligated to complete it, but we have a Google Doc and we keep that on file.
Do we get a lot of them returned? Can you give me an idea? Half?
The
A third?
retirees complete the form. Those that resign or were terminated, no.
Is it anonymous?
It is anonymous. You can gather from some of the comments of who it may be.
Of course.
Or it may not be. But it is anonymous. It's sent to them the day after the board meeting, after you approve their resignation, termination, or retirement. And that's collected on our Google Doc. Perhaps at the end of the year, we could provide a summary of the school year and provide that to the board if you like. or the
That would be great.
Okay.
But we've been talking about that for a long time, so that
Yes.
would be awesome.
Thank you.
Follow-up question. Do we do the same thing for those who decide to decline the positions?
No.
We
Those,
don't ask them like, hey, why are you deciding not to take the position?
there are times, for instance, I'll give you an example. We have a job fair that we do. Last year, we had it in mid-July. The previous year, we had it at the end of June. And these are support positions that we're offering. So secretary, bus driver, custodians, and they're looking for a job now. But that job's not going to start to possibly September if they're a paraprofessional or a classroom mate or latchkey. So there are folks that I call it summer melt, that over the summer, they just tend to go away. There are some folks that go through the process. They'll start the process with our office and then they'll, for some reason, do not complete the process for whatever that may be.
Thank you. Anyone else? Questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Fritz,
Yes.
Mrs. Galnick,
Yes.
Mr. Givens,
Yes.
Ms. Gore,
Yes.
Mrs. Henry,
Yes.
Mr. Hutchinson,
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson,
Yes.
Ms. Stantino,
Yes.
Ms. O'Donnell.
Yes. Report of the business administrator.
Hi, yes, my stuff has moved down to item 8, so my report begins on 8. All the way through 8.7 And if anyone has any questions after you get your roll call.
I need a motion first. Can I get a motion?
So moved?
Mrs. Johnson. Second.
Second.
Thank you. Mrs. Gore. Nobody wants it. Any questions? Mrs. Hendry?
Yes, I have a question. With regards to our partner Brett Denovi, it seems that our partnership is increasing year after year with him. So just wanting to see, do we have a handle on this? So therefore it doesn't keep on increasing? Or do we have a long-term plan? So therefore we can have district employees as opposed to outsourcing?
The Brett Denovi is one of a handful of resources that for total vendors that are used for support for students with special needs. I know that every year the scope of what is asked for and in turn the work we give to Brett Benovi to support our students is growing. It's very, very expensive. The board in prior months has tried to, as it were, pilot and have a mimic of Brett Benovi. And so there was approval of job descriptions, there was posting of them, and there was not a great deal of yield for people interested in that, Mrs. Henry. So unfortunately, we need to continue to service these students because they have IEPs, and it's very frustrating because you see the need, but we also glare at the expense, and it seems to be a runaway train, as it were, for money. So I know that Dr. Martin is attempting to pilot things, but it just, the amount of students that she needs to serve, they continue to grow. And it's a very, very difficult answer right now, other than we are paying a great deal of money for these supports because we can't garner them ourselves. And I don't believe we are alone as a district. There are many other districts that do the same and are paying. I don't know what they're paying, but they are paying the same firms.
Wait, if you want to answer, I would love for you to come to the microphone and hear what you have to say. We just can't hear you from there.
Good evening, Dr. Martin.
Thank you for coming and answering.
We've been on this train, as Mr. Bilodeau said, I've been here since 2012. We've been trying to create our own programs for many, many years. We have packets for Special Services Committee this evening that paints a picture of the learning profile of the students that we're currently charged with servicing. Brett Benovi has been a saving grace for us, because although there are other agencies that we approve everybody who applies who meet the threshold, they're the lowest price. They've never gone up on us. One time they did because the laws changed. And with the laws changing, it requires so many hours of supervision by BCBA, oversight of every individual that's in RBT. And that's a state, that's a law because of their licensure, right? And it doesn't matter what agency we use, they all have the same responsibility, but Brett is the less expensive and the most qualified. We have other agencies that we use, and there's a very high turnover rate of staff because they don't have the skill set to address the needs of our students. And then the other thing is the business is competitive. They want benefits. So if an individual is here, they love working here. But if someone offers them a program or another opportunity and they can get a full benefit and get more money, they're going to that. For continuity purposes, Brett is fortunately the one who continuously supplies a substitute. No one else is able to do that. The next largest company in this area is Great Minds, and that's the one that we've been having more, I'd say, some difficulties with. She continues to raise her price, but her primary responsibility and commitment is to Voorhees public schools, the elementary schools, because they have 16 autism rooms. So her staff, a majority of her staff that she's able to maintain are in Voorhees public schools. But this is a systemic issue. We're out of teachers. Teacher resources in this particular population are extremely challenging right now. And it's not just in districts, it's out of districts as well. In fact, we've been looking to pull some of our students back, and we've been watching some of the things that are happening. And if it doesn't happen the way that we expect it to happen, then we're pulling the students and putting them elsewhere. So we're keeping a very close eye on it, but we were in today and it's disheartening. The needs of our children, and we're trying to connect them with community resources. There's a brand new organization that just moved into the area, and they do insurance-based services. So we're trying to get parents to connect with them. They will assist in doing everything that they need to do as a parent partner. We got the Camden County CFO that is working with our families. We're really trying to bridge that gap because the state just recently drew a demarcation line between what is educational and what is medical. So that's had a huge impact on practice. And they have, you can go on the state websites and they will tell you the role of a BCBA, the role of an RBT in an educational setting is this, and anyone doing outside services is that, and the two shall never cross. So we're working in tandem with community agencies, with our students, with our families, doing our best to try to be smart about our resources. But I gotta tell you, the picture is a bit grim because we're out of space and we're also out of human resources. So it's not easy. But anybody is forever welcome to come in and see all of our wonderful programs and all our beautiful children because the door is always open.
Thank you. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
that. Thank you.
Dr. Martin, you do have for the Special Education Committee a meeting scheduled next week?
Yes.
Okay. Well, oh, okay, that was the segue.
It was a segue. Good.
You asked. Prepared. This is for you. This is for you. Thank you. I asked that you review that before we come because there's not enough time. But most importantly, what I didn't say is that we had our programs evaluated because the state just changed the regulations on what an autism program should look like. So we've had our programs independently evaluated. That summary is in there. They also just released the behavior disabilities emotional regulation programs. So this summer, we are evaluating that one. So we're in the process of trying to make our programs align with best practices. Thank you.
Thanks.
I have one more follow-up question.
Sure.
So as of right now, Brett is probably the best resource and avenue to go. But we as a district, do we have a roadmap to start chipping away? So therefore we can grow our team. So therefore we're not so reliant on outside resources. Yeah.
I didn't see you creeping up there.
Very,
Might
very
as well have a
sneaky.
seat.
Yeah.
So my staff, Kevin and Jackie, they're consistently interviewing every week, trying to meet the need. You guys do about what, 5 to 10 interviews a week? Right. Each month, we have a whole entire log of everybody that we've interviewed. The problem is onboarding, like Mr. Mercado spoke of. Staff, when they're looking for a job, they want to work now. So if I go to an employer and I'm out in public sector, I get my fingerprints, I do my physical, and then whatever shots I need to be cleared, and I do my assessments, and then I get to start. There is training during that time that we're able to provide. But here with the school, the way it works is you have to do the interview. Then you go through the onboarding process. You have to get your physical, you have to do your background check, and then it has to come to you. And then we hope that all the paperwork and everything is completed by the time after tonight, tomorrow, we can pick up the phone and say, hey, you can start. They don't want to wait. They want money, they want to eat, and it just takes too long.
The process is too long.
Process is very long, but it's a public school. I've been doing this for like 38 years. And I gotta be honest with you. I always, whenever I had students, I always had a problem. So I was pulling in college students and getting them cleared and getting them to work. We've gone to the colleges. We've tried to recruit students. We bring in at least 100 student teachers a year. It's about 100. And we really try to reel them in. And it's just so competitive because again, it's not just us that's looking. But when I ran my separate public school programs, I brought in students doing tours and every student left there with an application and I certified them for the day. They either got $75, and this was a while ago, $75 for the day if they were coming in as an aide, or I would pay them $95 if they had a substitute certification. Once we processed them, because the college did all their clearance with the background checks and the physicals, my secretary would get them board approved, process them, and they gave us all their availability. So we always had a bank going all the time. So I didn't have an issue with getting them in, but it's very, very difficult because you only have this school here, whereas before I was right near Rowan, so I could do it more. But you only have the community college. And a lot of those classes are no longer in person, they're virtual. Nobody wants to come out there.
I actually have a question, Dr.
Sure.
Would you say that there's actually a savings realized over time because of your ability to staff consistently? So you don't have to have like all these empty slots? And then also realized over the time not spent managing HR issues, time not, or money not spent on providing benefits to hired.
So I will
employees?
tell you a
Just-
secret.
Yeah.
If you look at the roster that we just gave you in projections for one school next year, if you don't program and provide the resources, that will cost the district just in that one school $7 million. So every position, every seat that we program for in our Union Valley Elementary School is a potential 100 to 130 minimally a year. Minimally without transportation. If you add a one-on-one, which we have, now you're talking almost $200,000. You start multiplying that. And we also are communication training our children. Mr. O'Brien's we've been purchasing iPads and trying to facilitate language early on. So we start in the preschool program and then we work and train them on how to use their talkers. Once they are proficient with it, we're trying to connect families to getting it done. We've got an arrangement with our tech department to where now we can download safely apps instead of paying. Last year, I think I paid almost $100,000 doing augmented communication evaluations because everybody kept saying they need an AHC eval, they need an AHC eval. So by the time you do the evaluation, pay for the device, download the software, and then train everybody, and you start multiplying that with your populations, I was like, this isn't working for me. So we started to incorporate them into our programs so that they are becoming more proficient. And as their language increases, we give them the iPad with the talker, with everything that they need. We bring the parent in and help them train. And then once they're proficient, we connect them to the agencies so that they can get their own devices for free. Because we're not allowed, they're not allowed to, or we're not required or not allowed to demand that a parent bring their child's device inside the school. We're legally required to provide all of those resources. So we're just being more efficient in how we're utilizing that.
So that probably realizes another savings in security in
Yeah.
methods to computers, technology.
Well, we bought a new, thank you to Mr. McCauley. He told us about a way to secure the walls of all the devices that we're using. So now we can use the talkers with no security breaches. Our tech department has done an excellent job at helping us keep them going. It's been really, really nice. It really has. So we've saved a lot, but now our kids are much more independent too. We just need toilets.
Can we put a workshop together for this topic that we can all talk about, like what the hurdles are and see how we can,
We could,
as a board, maybe take.
I would
cuffs off some of
suggest
the
maybe
things?
after they have, you're having a meeting
Monday.
next Monday?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, if you think that the board would benefit from having a much deeper conversation about this with everyone involved,
I don't know,
I'm
it just-
not opposed.
I don't not,
There are a
I
lot
don't
of
not believe
questions.
everything she said. I don't understand how Brett Denovi exists. If all these costs are on them as well, how can we not be? But
Yeah, yeah.
this
I'm
isn't the
not-
time or
I'm not
place to have
opposed.
that
That-
thing. That's what I'm asking.
It's a really deep conversation. I get your
Right.
point. There's, we could go, and that's on a, a special workshop meeting would be fine with that, but it's a very complex question.
Right, and this
even more
isn't the
complex
place
than-
for it. That's what I'm saying. Can we dedicate a time and place for that?
An hour for, I don't see why not. Yeah, I don't see why not. Okay,
Okay.
thank you so much.
You're
I appreciate
welcome.
that.
Thank you.
Anyone? Any other questions?
Right here.
Mrs.
We can tell you
Oh.
real quick for the dates.
No, we're just running it for the meeting on Monday, just a couple numbers. Going into COVID, we had about 140 district aides. Coming out of COVID, we had about 80. We had 96 district aides on November 11th, give or take, when I ran this. We have 98 now. So we've only gained 2 since November. We had 64, I think it is, attempts to interview from our website for a district aid, and we have 17 hired. So that's what's been going on. We broke that down last year too. The trends are the same, but there's numbers for you on why we have to use other people. We couldn't ever meet the needs of our students in the township with just district aides. So
Thank
there's a
you.
much longer conversation, but I want to give you
I-
that.
Thank you. Mrs. Johnson?
Yes, on. Oh, gosh.
Administrator report, moving second discussion.
8.7J. It says, be it resolved, included in budget line 660, budgeted withdrawal from emergency reserve, yada, yada. For the replacement of the door intrusion system. Is this at Gloucester Township School?
It's every single school.
I guess.
Okay,
It's a door intrusion system. It's how you get into the building.
yeah,
But it's much more sophisticated. That's why they call it an intrusion system. Like, when you hear like someone held the door open with a rock, we would know about it.
okay,
Not only we know about it, but also after however many minutes you want to set, like a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, you'll have an alarm that'll go off the door that says this door's been propped open. So people in the hallway would know that door's open.
okay. Are we putting this on every door?
Every school, yeah.
Every single door in every single school?
Correct.
Okay, all right, that's good. Thank you. I do have 2 more. I'm sorry. On the bill list, it says TRANSP contract reimbursement. Is that an aid in lieu?
Yes. I think we just issued them in, is it this month or last month? That's probably what that is, yeah.
Yeah, there was 2 of them on there.
Are they the same amount of money?
No, they were 2 different ones. But, okay, and then one other question, on check number 136870 for a Vincent Spinelli, it says NP, and I think it's probably a misspelling of security,
Oh, yeah.
Our Lady of Hope.
Yeah,
So-
that's non-public. We don't get to choose who they use for their security. They have I guess it's a parent who does their like video cameras and stuff like that. That's who that's for.
It's not with.
It's
the
not
SRO.
it's not our money. It's federal money for that.
Right, right, but that's not with the SROs?
No, no, no.
This is something different from
Yeah.
that. Okay, thank you. That's it.
I had a question on check 136842, Remington and Vernick. Are they not doing fire alarm systems for us? So we pay Johnson Controls to do that, and we pay
No.
them an extraordinary.
No,
amount.
they did the design of the 3 fire alarms that we replaced, Glen Landing, Choose, and Glendora over the summertime. They did the design. I think that's just a follow-up bill you're seeing right there.
Yeah, they had 3 different bills that were on there. in the
Yeah.
Same check.
So they only did 2 things for us. They did the fire alarms and they do the rod grants. So you're probably seeing the fire alarm finishing up because we just got the certificate of occupancy, whatever it's called with that, and all of the warranty information. So I think they finally build that out. And then every other month that you're seeing is probably all the rod grant design and administration.
Yeah, no, the rod wasn't what I was questioning. I was just wondering why they
Fire
got into,
alarms.
because I feel like Johnson Controls, we paying them $70-some thousand a month for something or other.
Yeah,
and
but
then it's
Johnson
always
Con-
explained that,
Johnson
"Oh, they
Controls-
designed this, and now it's Remington and Vernick.
Johnson Controls just does the service on it. But the actual design was done by Remington and Vernick when it was installed.
Okay, and then the other question was the check 136888 pest control for $565. Is that the entire district?
Probably, and that's probably monthly. You probably see that bill monthly, I think.
That is, they need to expand and do other services. They do our entire district for $536.
I mean, I would have to look at the invoice. It could be for a specific call. A lot of times they get called into the
It
cafeterias and
seems
stuff
like it
like
was
that.
every single school. I feel like we pay more in travel expenses to people going back and forth to school than if that's.
I'd have-
Either, are we not doing
I would
pest
have-
control
I would have
well,
to-
or are they not, or are they just so cheap that's?
I would have to
that
look at the
sounds
invoice. I'd have to look at the invoice. But they are in monthly.
Either microphone.
Right, yeah. All right. That was all my question.
And I requested that we do an electric update during old business. Is that gonna happen, or should I question during the bill list?
I can give you the answer now. And the answer is I don't have an answer, only because I've been spending most of my time doing this budget, which is very complex. But my time will free up now and I will get back on the phone to find out what is going on. That's the answer.
Okay, that's good. Any other questions? Can we get a roll call? Mrs. Henry?
Yeah, I saw that we bought a bunch of portable heaters. Why did we need so many portable heaters?
I don't really have that answer without looking at the
Huh?
invoice.
Do we have a heating problem in our schools? Are they for the classrooms? Are they
I-
for the schools?
I mean, I don't know without looking at the invoice. I don't know what it's for. How much is a lot of money?
I believe, I think it came from HD Supply.
If you give me the check number, I'll shoot you an email tomorrow. And let you know.
Okay.
Perfect, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, can I get a roll call, please?
Mrs. Fritz,
I'm going to abstain from 8.5 A, B, C, and D, and yes to everything else.
Mrs. Galnick,
Yes.
Mr. Gibbons,
I'm a no on check 136707, yes on the balance.
Miss Gore,
Yes.
Mrs. Hendry,
I'm a no on check number 136707, yes on the balance.
Mr. Hutchinson,
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson,
Abstain on check number 136718 and 136795, yes on the balance.
Ms. Dentino,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Yes. Mr. Bilodeau, any old business? New business?
No, at this time.
Your microphone's not on.
None at this time, times two.
Thank you. Any public comment on any items?
I do.
Mrs. Gilch?
Unfortunately, Linda Gilch, I didn't see, I saw her, but I didn't realize who got the special ed packets that is on the special ed committee. And who was the chair of that? I am. All right, I was going to also say about the Brett Denovi money, I think we really need as a district, and I know it's hard, but I think we need to start looking into, and I know it's a hard subject. I mean, I know people that are in it, but I think we need to do our due diligence. And Mr. Gibbons, I think that was a great idea. Maybe everyone together, maybe everybody will understand a little more. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments on any items? None? Any board member comments? Board member comments? Mrs. Dentino?
I'd like to congratulate the STAR students. I'd also like to thank Dr. Martin, Special Services, for allowing me to go out again. I do go out to the special service classrooms to see what's going on and watch them engage and see the new programs that they're doing over there. And she did make mention of it today. There was one in particular student that I saw that was very, very, very low functioning. And I give them so much credit to deal and still get the job done and to assist the children and still see that the program is still running properly. They just do a good job. I just like to thank the supervisors there and all the staff. I think that they do a good job over there.
Thank you. Any other board member comments?
I unfortunately missed the most recent cafe this past, I think it was Friday ago. I missed that, but I want to congratulate those STAR students. I also want to just, in questioning this whole thing, it's not, no one's against the program, no one's against anything. It's just a matter of how can we better do it. We don't know the hurdles that they're handcuffed with, you know, where she's saying it takes a month for somebody to get hired. Maybe there's something that we can do to help free that up or make that process go better. And I feel like that workshop would definitely help that, to learn, you know, more of that, if they can present it all to us and we all have open dialogue about it. I really think that would be helpful, because I understand that, you know, we only had so many applications, but if word is out there that we're no longer using their services, we're hiring internally, maybe that number changes when they know they can go to Brett. Brett Denovi exists because we have a need, right? If we say we're not allowing you to fill our need, we're going to do it ourselves, that changes the whole dynamic of who we're attracting and everything else. So I really feel like there's a conversation that we should have. I know they're not easy conversations to have, but easy conversations are hard conversations where, you know, things happen. I think we should go in that direction, but thank you everybody for coming out tonight too.
Any other? So I have a few things. I wanted to thank the board for the committee reports. I think that is a great addition to the meeting. And a lot of times you're up here just going, yes, no, and giving opinions here and there. I appreciate everyone doing that. I received a text message from someone, thanking the board for the science labs. One of the employees, they absolutely love it. So I wanted to pass along that message. I wanted to congratulate the Kindness Club. Boy, don't we need that in the world. And the Choose Cafe I missed also, but it was Pie Day, so they didn't have bagels. So I didn't really feel bad about that. When they have bagels again, I'll be there. Mr. Bilodeau, can we get and IT? Can we get a handheld mic for when Dr. Martin or Mr. Mercado or someone needs to speak? I just feel like they're not just addressing the board, but they're addressing the public too. And if they could just kind of be off to the side with not their backs to the audience.
An additional mic.
Yeah, just a handheld that Dr. Martin can use and Mr. Mercado can use, and they don't have to stand at the mic and have their backs to the people that they're addressing them as well. So if we,
Should we put a 3-minute time limit on?
on Dr.
Yes.
Martin and Mr. Mercado, no, Mr. Tro, we can talk about. I was also mentioning today how, after tax season, I'm not listening to, after tax season, I also do want to go on a tour, and visit the special ed, classrooms. Maybe you can go with me, Mrs. Dentino. And I agree on your workshop. I would like, if the board has any other topics that are kind of brewing under there, and they would like to, give some suggestions, if we're going to do a workshop meeting, I'd rather cover, you know, any other topics that people are really interested in other than just one, but I'm not opposed to doing it for that. And I think that's all for me. That's it.
Question, do you think if when we do the workshop, like in the event that it's maybe quarterly, we can also see how we're progressing in our board goals? That would be a nice way to check in, to
That,
see,
yes.
you know, as the temperature to see, you know, are we on track, off track, or?
I can't think of the third one off the top of my head, but you guys are working on the AI goal, which I appreciate. I know one is around testing, right? So I'd love to come up with actual measurements of that. I think is a great idea. So yeah, board goals can definitely be a conversation. I love that idea. Thank you. And if anyone else has any ideas, please let me know. But yeah, I'll send something out to get that scheduled, and I will request Dr. Martin be there if she can make it. Sorry, they want to talk about your department.
Would that be,
Sorry.
Mr. Long, would that be an executive meeting? I'm wondering because it's not personal.
It depends. So there, if we were talking about individual students or individual staff members, then absolutely, that would have to be, there would just be constraints as to what we can talk about publicly. Like anything else, for sure.
But we
About
can
that.
have an open dialogue regarding.
If we were to
challenges.
have let's put it this way, everything we talked about tonight,
Was fine.
totally fine. And I would have tried to kick you under the table as I did with some past board presidents from time to time. Once it kind of veered in that direction, but that kind of discussion is perfectly okay in public. There's sometimes it can cross over, and at that point, if we need to go to the back, we could. Just for those limited purposes, but you know, that kind of thing where it's broad strokes, challenges, but when you talk about individuals, that's when it kind of crosses into exec.
Can I ask, so
Sure.
I know that the committee reports is new. Is it, I know we had to turn in a, you know, like a draft of what we were going to say. Is it possible to do that sooner and then be shared with the rest of the board, or here when the committee member gives the report, ask, is there any other questions from other board members about that to allow us to ask questions if we don't?
Yeah, I
About
think
the
actually, I
topic?
think that's a great idea. There's nothing I love more than open dialogue while we're here. So yeah, I'm not opposed to that at all. If we want to send committee reports to the entire board, I just request that you send it. And in the memo, just do not reply all. Because when the entire board is involved in, and you can probably speak on this, an email chain, it's a quorum.
Right.
So you
Yeah,
could
yeah.
send it to yourself and BCC everyone else. Yeah, if,
Or have them send it out. to superintendent.
or send it, and send it, and then his secretary can send it out. That's fine. However we want to do that, I'm not opposed.
You can send informational items to each other, but when somebody hits the reply all, that's when it constitutes a meeting, and of course it has to be advertised.
Right.
That's.
Yeah, so no, I think that that's a great idea. That way we can read them in advance, and then if we have any questions or we have any, I love that idea. So thank you. Anyone else?
Write it down now.
Poor guy.
All right, get
We
it.
have no sympathy. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Thank you. Second?
My second.
All in favor? All in favor? Thank you. Have a great night, everyone.